The cold wind cut across the frozen wasteland of New Eden like a sharp knife. Dr. Yuna Kim pulled her thermal jacket tighter as she walked through the knee-deep snow. Her breath came out in white clouds that quickly disappeared in the bitter air. Behind her, 3 other people followed in a single line, their boots crunching on the ice. New Eden was supposed to be humanity's fresh start. A planet far from Earth where people could build new lives under alien stars. But after 5 years of living here, Yuna knew the truth. This world was harsh and unforgiving. The winters lasted 8 months, and the summers barely melted the surface. Ice. "How much further, Dr. Kim?" asked Captain Jinho Park. He was a tall man with broad shoulders who carried the team's weapons and emergency supplies. His voice sounded tired even through the communication device in his helmet. Yuna checked her portable scanner. The device showed a map of the area with small dots marking their position. A red blinking dot appeared about 2 kilometers ahead. "Not far now. The reading is coming from just over that hill." Dr. Minho Lee, the team's medical officer, stopped to catch his breath. He was older than the others and not used to long walks in difficult terrain. "What exactly are we looking for?" Again, the report from the satellite was not very clear. "Something big," Yuna said. "The thermal sensors picked up a large life form that doesn't match any known species on New Eden. It appeared suddenly 3 days ago and hasn't moved since." Sora Choi, their field technician, adjusted her heavy equipment pack. She was the youngest member of the team, but also the strongest. "Could it be a new predator? Something we haven't seen before?" "Maybe," Yuna replied. "But the size readings are strange. Whatever it is, it's much larger than anything we've cataloged on this planet." The team had been walking for 4 hours through the endless white landscape. New Eden had 2 small moons that provided some light even during the day, but the thick clouds often blocked them out. Today was one of those gray days where the sky and ground seemed to blend together. Captain Park suddenly raised his hand, signaling everyone to stop. He had his weapon ready and was looking ahead with sharp eyes. "I see something. About 300 meters ahead." Yuna pulled out her binoculars and looked in the direction Park was pointing. At first, she saw nothing but snow and ice. Then, she saw it. A massive dark shape lying on its side near a cluster of black rocks. Even from this distance, she could tell it was enormous. "Is it alive?" Minho asked, pulling out his own binoculars. "Hard to tell from here," Yuna said. "But if it's been lying in that position for 3 days without moving, it's either dead or badly injured." Sora unpacked one of her scanners and pointed it at the distant shape. The device beeped softly as it gathered information. "I'm getting faint life signs. Whatever it is, it's still breathing." The team moved closer, being careful to stay quiet. As they walked, the shape became clearer. It looked like an animal, but unlike anything that lived on New Eden. The creature had thick brown fur and a long trunk-like nose. Its body was huge, probably 3 times the size of the largest animals they had seen on this planet. "It looks like a mammoth," Minho said in surprise. "Like the extinct animals from Earth." Yuna stopped walking. She had studied mammoth fossils during her training years ago. This creature did look remarkably similar to those ancient Earth animals. But that was impossible. Mammoths had been extinct for thousands of years, and there was no way one could have gotten to New Eden. "That's not possible," she said. "Mammoths never left Earth, and they died out long before humans developed space travel." Captain Park kept his weapon ready as they approached. "Maybe it's just something that evolved to look similar. Convergent evolution, right?" "Maybe," Yuna said, but she didn't sound convinced. As they got closer, they could see that the creature was indeed alive but in bad condition. Its breathing was slow and labored. There were strange marks across its thick hide that looked like scars from some kind of burning or cutting. The most unusual thing was that some of these scars had a metallic shine to them, as if pieces of metal had been embedded in the creature's skin. "Those scars are not natural," Sora observed. "Something did this to the animal on purpose." Yuna pulled out her portable bioscanner, a device that could analyze the genetic structure of any living thing. She pointed it at the mammoth-like creature and waited for the results. The scanner hummed quietly as it worked. After a few minutes, the device beeped. Yuna looked at the display screen and her face went pale. She stared at the readings for a long moment, then shook the scanner and tried again. "What is it?" Park asked, noticing her expression. "This can't be right," Yuna whispered. She ran the scan a third time, but the results were the same. "Dr. Kim, what does the scanner say?" Minho asked impatiently. Yuna looked up at her teammates with confusion and fear in her eyes. "According to this, the creature has human DNA markers, not just similar to human DNA, but actual human genetic signatures integrated into its biological structure." "That's impossible," Sora said. "How could a mammoth have human DNA?" "It gets worse," Yuna continued, her voice shaking. "The scanner is detecting human neural tissue. There are human brain patterns mixed with the animal's natural brain structure." The team stood in stunned silence. The wind howled around them, but none of them noticed the cold anymore. They were all staring at the massive creature lying in the snow. Captain Park finally spoke. "Are you saying this thing is part human?" Before Yuna could answer, the creature's eyes slowly opened. They were not the small, dark eyes of an animal. They were large and intelligent, with a very human expression of pain and awareness. The mammoth looked directly at Dr. Yuna Kim. When it spoke, its voice was clear and unmistakably human, speaking in perfect Korean. "Please," the creature said, in a voice filled with sadness and desperation. "Help me remember who I was." The four humans stood frozen in shock. The wind continued to blow across the frozen wasteland, but time seemed to have stopped completely. Everything they thought they knew about their world, about what was possible, had just changed forever. The creature closed its eyes again, too weak to stay conscious. But those words hung in the cold air like a challenge to everything they believed, about life, about humanity, and about the mysteries that might be hiding in the vast darkness of space. The mobile research station hummed with activity as Dr. Minho Lee worked frantically to keep the massive creature alive. The station was a large vehicle designed for long expeditions, with a medical bay, laboratory, and living quarters, but it had never been used to treat something this size. The mammoth-like being lay on the reinforced floor, taking up most of the available space. Its breathing was still weak, but the medical equipment showed it was stable for now. Dr. Yuna Kim stood nearby, watching the scanner displays with growing amazement and fear. "The neural activity is incredible," she said to Captain Jinho Park. "This isn't just an animal brain. There are complex thought patterns here that match human consciousness levels." Park stood guard by the entrance, his weapon ready. "How is that even possible? You can't just put a human mind into an animal body." "Actually, you can," Minho said without looking up from his work. "The technology exists. I've read about experiments in consciousness transfer, but they were always theoretical. No one ever succeeded in actually doing it." Sora Choi was setting up the neural interface equipment. It was advanced technology that could connect directly to brain tissue and read thoughts and memories. If there really is a human consciousness in there, this should be able to access it. Yuna checked the creature's vital signs one more time. "Are you sure this is safe? We don't know what kind of mental state this consciousness might be in." "We have to try," Minho said. "If someone is trapped in there, they deserve our help." The neural interface looked like a helmet covered in thin wires and sensors. Sora carefully placed it on the creature's massive head, adjusting the connections to make contact with the brain tissue. The machine started up with a soft whirring sound. "I'm getting something," Sora said, watching the display screen. "There are definitely human thought patterns here, but they're mixed with animal instincts and responses. It's like two different minds trying to share the same space." Images began appearing on the screen. Fragmented memories played out like broken movie clips. The team watched in fascination as scenes from a human life flickered past. They saw laboratories, spaceships, and people in uniforms they didn't recognize. "Wait," Yuna said. "Go back to that last image." Sora replayed the memory. It showed a man in a white lab coat working at a computer terminal. He had kind eyes and graying hair. The uniform he wore had symbols that looked familiar. "That's a Human Defense Coalition uniform," Park said. "But it's an old style. They stopped using those designs about 200 years ago. The memories continued to play. They saw the same man being captured by strange alien beings. The aliens were tall and thin with gray skin and large black eyes. They wore dark robes and carried weapons that glowed with purple energy. Vaxari, Park whispered. Those are Vaxari soldiers. The Vaxari were humanity's greatest enemy. They had been fighting humans for centuries, believing that humans were nothing more than clever animals. The war had been going on for so long that most people had forgotten how it started. More memories appeared. The team watched in horror as the Vaxari performed experiments on the captured human. They saw the man's consciousness being extracted from his body and placed into some kind of storage device. They're transferring his mind, Minho said in disgust. But why would they do that? The answer came in the next memory. The Vaxari were speaking in their own language, but the neural interface translated their words. The human thinks it is superior to other animals. We will show it the truth by making it become what it really is. It's punishment, Yuna realized. They put his human mind into an animal body to humiliate him. The memories showed the consciousness being placed into the body of a young mammoth. The procedure was painful and traumatic. The human mind fought against the animal instincts, creating a constant internal struggle. But then something unexpected happened. The memories showed the mammoth learning to control its new body. The human intelligence adapted to the animal form, becoming stronger and more capable than either human or mammoth could be alone. Look at this, Sora said, pointing to the screen. He's not just surviving, he's fighting back. The memories revealed years of careful planning. The mammoth had been sabotaging Vaxari operations across multiple worlds. It used its animal appearance to get close to enemy installations without being suspected. The Vaxari saw it as just another dumb animal, never realizing it was gathering intelligence. He's been at war for 2 centuries, Park said with admiration. All alone, fighting the enemy from the inside. The neural interface suddenly activated, the creature's voice systems. The mammoth opened its eyes and looked directly at the humans. When it spoke, the voice was clear and intelligent. My name is Dr. Hyun Seo, the creature said. I was a researcher with the Human Defense Coalition. I was captured during the Battle of Kepler Prime in the year 2187. The team exchanged glances. That battle had been 200 years ago. If this was true, then Dr. Hyun Seo had been trapped in this form for 2 centuries. Dr. Seo, Yuna said, gently. We're here to help you. Can you tell us what happened? The Vaxari wanted to break my spirit, Hyun replied. They thought putting my mind into an animal body would make me give up. But they underestimated human determination. I've spent 200 years learning their weaknesses, mapping their territories, and preparing for this moment. What moment? Park asked. Hyun's eyes became more focused. The moment when I could finally share everything I've learned with other humans. I've been waiting for someone to find me, someone who could help me complete my mission. Minho finished his medical examination. The good news is that your body is stable. The bad news is that the neural integration is permanent. We can't separate your consciousness from the mammoth body. I don't want to be separated, Hyun said. This body has advantages that a human body doesn't have. I'm stronger. I can survive in harsh environments, and the Vaxari still see me as just an animal. Sora looked at the data she had collected. The metallic scars on your body. What are those? Tracking implants, Hyun explained. The Vaxari have been hunting me for decades. Every time they get close, I destroy another implant. But I've been leaving a trail on purpose. A trail to where? Yuna asked. Hyun's expression became serious. To here, to New Eden. I've been leading them to a place where I can finally turn the tables on them. Captain Park suddenly looked alarmed. If you've been leading them here, then they're coming. Yes, Hyun said. They should arrive within the next few hours. But this time I'm ready for them. And now I have help. The team realized they were no longer just dealing with a rescue mission. They were about to become part of a war that had been going on for 2 centuries, and their new ally was a human consciousness trapped in the body of a mammoth who had been planning his revenge for longer than any of them had been alive. Captain Jinho Park stared at the radar screen in disbelief. 3 large objects were approaching New Eden from deep space. They were moving fast and had the distinctive energy signatures of Vaxari warships. "How long do we have?" Dr. Yuna Kim asked, her voice tight with worry. 4 hours, maybe 5, Park replied. "Those are dreadnoughts. Each one could destroy our entire colony." Dr. Hyun Seo, still lying on the floor of the mobile research station, listened to their conversation with calm attention. His mammoth body seemed relaxed, but his human eyes showed sharp intelligence. "Don't panic," Hyun said. "This is exactly what I wanted to happen." Dr. Minho Lee stopped packing the medical equipment. "You wanted 3 Vaxari warships to attack a defenseless human colony? Are you insane?" "Not insane," Hyun replied. "Patient. I've been preparing for this moment for 200 years. Sora." Choi was monitoring the communications array. "I'm picking up transmissions from the Vaxari ships. They're talking about recovering their escaped experiment and eliminating witnesses." "That's us," Park said grimly. "We're the witnesses." Hyun slowly got to his feet. Even weakened from his injuries, his massive form filled most of the research station. "There are things about my condition that the Vaxari never discovered, things I kept hidden even from them." "What kind of things?" Yuna asked. "The consciousness transfer process didn't just put my human mind into a mammoth body," Hyun explained. "It created something new, something that has abilities neither human nor mammoth possessed alone." To demonstrate, Hyun placed his trunk against the power console of the research station. Suddenly, the lights flickered and the electrical systems began behaving strangely. The screen showed energy readings that made no sense. "Bioelectricity," Minho said in amazement. "You can control electrical systems directly." The mammoth's natural bioelectric field was enhanced by the human neural tissue, Hyun said. "I can interface with any electronic device just by touching it." The Vaxari never realized what they had created. Sora checked her equipment readings. "The energy output is incredible. You're generating more electrical power than our main generator." "That's not all," Hyun continued. 200 years of living in this body has taught me things about survival and combat that no human or mammoth could learn alone. I'm stronger than any natural mammoth, but I also have human intelligence and planning ability." Park was still watching the radar. "That's all very impressive, but we're still talking about 3 dreadnoughts. Even with your abilities, how can we possibly fight them?" "We don't fight them," Hyun said. "We use their own weapons against them." Yuna looked confused. "What do you mean?" "Every Vaxari ship has the same weakness," Hyun explained. "Their technology is based on bioelectric systems similar to what they created in me. But they never expected their own creation to be able to control their technology." Hyun moved to the communications console and placed his trunk against it. The system immediately began showing new information. Detailed schematics of Vaxari ship designs appeared on the screen. "Where did this come from?" Sora asked. "From me," Hyun said. "I've been inside dozens of Vaxari ships over the years. Every time they captured me, I memorized their systems. Every time I escaped, I learned more about their weaknesses." The schematics showed the power distribution systems of Vaxari dreadnoughts. There were clear points where the ships could be disabled if someone could access their electrical networks. "You're talking about getting onto their ships," Park said. "That's suicide." "Not if they bring me aboard voluntarily," Hyun replied. "The Vaxari want to recapture me alive. They consider me their greatest experiment. When they scan this area, they'll detect my biosignature and come to collect me." Minho shook his head. "You're suggesting we let them capture you?" "Not just me," Hyun said. "All of us. But they won't expect you to be anything more than primitive colonists. They'll underestimate you just like they underestimated me." Yuna was studying the ship schematics. "These power systems are incredibly complex. How could we possibly sabotage them?" "Leave that to me," Hyun said. "I just need you to get me close to their main power cores. Once I can touch their systems directly, I can shut down their entire fleet." Sora looked worried. "What about the colony?" Even if we disable the ships, there are still thousands of people who could be hurt. The colony will be safe, Hyun assured her. The Vaxari won't attack until they have me secured. They want to study what I've become. That gives us time to act. Park made a decision. What do you need us to do? First, we need to make it look like you captured me, Hyun said. The Vaxari know that humans would want to study something like me. They'll expect you to have me restrained and ready for transport. And then? Yuna asked. Then we wait for them to come to us. The next 2 hours were spent in preparation. The team created fake restraints that looked secure, but could be easily broken. They programmed their computers to show false research data that would interest the Vaxari. Most importantly, they studied the Vaxari ship layouts until they knew every corridor and system. Remember, Hyun said as they made final preparations. The Vaxari see humans as clever animals. They'll be condescending and dismissive. Use that against them. Let them think they're in control. The radar showed the Vaxari ships entering orbit. Around New Eden, smaller transport ships began descending toward the planet's surface. They're coming, Park announced. Hyun lay down and allowed the team to place the fake restraints around his legs and trunk. To any observer, it would look like the humans had successfully captured and sedated a dangerous creature. Are you sure about this? Minho asked quietly. I've been sure about this for 200 years, Hyun replied. The Vaxari made one mistake. When they created me, they gave a human intelligence the tools to destroy them. Now it's time to show them what humans are really capable of. Through the research station's windows, they could see Vaxari landing craft approaching across the frozen landscape. The alien ships moved silently through the air, their dark hulls reflecting the pale light of New Eden's twin moons. Whatever happens, Yuna said to her team, we stick together and we follow Dr. Seo's lead. Agreed, Park said, checking his weapons one last time. Ready? Sora confirmed, securing her equipment. Let's do this, Minho added, his medical training overcoming his fear. The Vaxari ships landed in a circle around the research station. Tall, gray figures in dark robes emerged from the craft, carrying glowing purple weapons. They moved with the confidence of beings who had never been successfully challenged by humans. But they had never met a human like Dr. Hyun Seo. As the Vaxari approached the research station, none of them realized they were walking into a trap that had been 2 centuries in the making. The Vaxari commander stood over Dr. Hyun Seo with obvious satisfaction. The alien was taller than any human, with pale gray skin and large black eyes that showed no emotion. His dark robes rustled as he moved around the seemingly helpless mammoth. So, our lost experiment has finally been found, the commander said in perfect human language. 200 years of searching, and these primitive colonists deliver you to us. Dr. Yuna Kim, Captain Jinho Park, Dr. Minho Lee, and Sora Choi stood nearby under guard. Vaxari soldiers kept their purple energy weapons pointed at the humans while their commander examined Hyun. We were just studying the creature, Yuna said, trying to sound nervous and confused. We had no idea it was important to you. The commander barely looked at her. Of course you didn't. Your species lacks the intelligence to understand what you had found. Park stepped forward slightly. What is it exactly? Our scans showed it had unusual properties. It is our greatest achievement, the commander replied proudly. A demonstration of what happens when inferior species are properly controlled. We took a human consciousness and placed it where it belongs, in the body of a lower animal. Hyun remained perfectly still, appearing to be unconscious. But his eyes were slightly open, watching everything. The fake restraints around his legs looked secure, but he could break free at any moment. Prepare the transport, the commander ordered, his soldiers. We will take the experiment and the humans back to the fleet. The High Command will want to study how these colonists were able to detect our creation. This was exactly what Hyun had predicted. The Vaxari couldn't resist the opportunity to study both their escaped experiment and the humans who had found. Their arrogance was their weakness. The transport ship was much larger than the research station. Inside, it had holding cells and a medical bay equipped with advanced Vaxari technology. The humans were placed in one cell while Hyun was secured in a special containment area. As the transport lifted off from New Eden's surface, Sora managed to whisper to her teammates. "The ship's power systems are just like the schematics, Doctor. CO showed us." "Remember the plan?" Park whispered back. "Wait for his signal." The transport docked with one of the massive Vaxari dreadnoughts orbiting the planet. The ship was enormous, with corridors that stretched for kilometers and chambers that could hold thousands of beings. The humans were taken to a detention area, while Hyun was brought to the main laboratory. Dr. Yuna Kim had studied the ship layouts during their preparation. She knew they were now deep inside the vessel, far from any escape pods or shuttles. But they weren't trying to escape. They were exactly where they needed to be. In the laboratory, Vaxari scientists gathered around Hyun's containment unit. They began running scans and tests, trying to understand how their experiment had developed over 2 centuries. "Fascinating," one scientist said. "The neural integration is far more complete than we achieved in our original procedure." "Look at these readings," another added. "The bioelectric output is much higher than expected." The commander watched the tests with interest. "Has the human consciousness remained intact?" "It appears so," the lead scientist replied. "But it seems to have adapted to the animal form. The integration is remarkable." What the Vaxari didn't realize was that every scan they performed was giving Hyun more information about their systems. He could feel the ship's electrical networks through the bioelectric sensors they were using on him. Like a map spreading out in his mind, he began to understand the vessel's power distribution. Meanwhile, the human team was being interrogated in their detention cell. Vaxari officers asked them detailed questions about their colony, their technology, and their military capabilities. "Your people have no significant defenses," one interrogator concluded. "The colony could be destroyed easily." "Please," Minho said, playing his part perfectly. "We're just scientists and researchers. We're not a threat to anyone." "All humans are a threat," the interrogator replied coldly. "Your species refuses to accept its proper place in the universe." While the interrogation continued, Hyun was learning everything he needed to know about the dreadnought. The ship's main power core was located 12 levels below the laboratory. The electrical conduits ran through every section of the vessel, creating a network he could access from multiple points. But the most important discovery was that all 3 dreadnoughts were connected by a shared communication system. If he could access one ship's network, he could potentially affect all 3 vessels. The Vaxari scientists were so focused on their tests that they didn't notice the subtle changes in their equipment. Hyun was carefully influencing their scanners, making them show exactly what he wanted them to see. He appeared to be a helpless animal-human hybrid, when in reality he was mapping their entire fleet. "The experiment shows signs of psychological damage," the lead scientist reported to the commander. "The human consciousness appears to be fragmented and weak." "Excellent," the commander replied. "That proves our theory. Human minds cannot maintain their integrity when placed in inferior forms. If Hyun could have smiled, he would have. The Vaxari's arrogance was making them blind to the truth. They saw what they expected to see, not what was actually happening." After several hours of testing, the scientists decided to move Hyun to a permanent holding facility deeper in the ship. This was the moment he had been waiting for. The route to the holding facility would take them past several critical power junctions. As they transported him through the ship's corridors, Hyun memorized every detail. He could sense the electrical systems running through the walls, floors, and ceilings. The ship was like a vast electronic organism, and he was learning to read its vital signs. In the detention area, the human team was growing restless. They had been questioned for hours, and their guards were beginning to relax. Park caught Yuna's eye and nodded slightly. It was almost time. "I need medical attention," Minho suddenly said, clutching his chest. "I think I'm having heart problems." The Vaxari guards looked at each other uncertainly. They had been ordered to keep the humans alive for further questioning. "Please," Yuna added. "He's our medical officer. If something happens to him, we won't be able to answer your questions about our colony's health systems." One guard reluctantly opened the cell to check on Minho. It was exactly the opportunity Park had been waiting for. Using techniques he had learned in military training, he quickly disabled the guard and took his weapon. The other guard raised his weapon, but Sora had already moved. She threw her scanner at the alien's head, distracting him long enough for Park to stun him with the captured energy weapon. "That's our signal," Yuna said. "Dr. Seo is counting on us." Meanwhile, Hyun had been placed in his permanent holding cell, but the Vaxari had made a crucial mistake. The cell's power systems were connected to the main grid, and the bioelectric suppression field they were using to contain him actually created a direct link to the ship's electrical network. The moment the suppression field activated, Hyun smiled inwardly. After 200 years of planning and waiting, he finally had access to a Vaxari dreadnought's power core. The fake restraints snapped like paper as Hyun stood up. He placed his trunk directly against the cell's power coupling, and his bioelectric ability surged through the ship's systems like lightning. Throughout the massive vessel, lights flickered and alarms began to sound. The Vaxari crew rushed to their stations, trying to understand what was happening to their ship, but it was already too late. Dr. Hyun Seo, the human consciousness that had spent 2 centuries learning to be the perfect weapon, had finally found his target. The Vaxari dreadnought shuddered as its power systems began failing throughout the massive ship. Emergency lights flickered on and off while alarms screamed in every corridor. In the ship's detention area, Dr. Yuna Kim and her team fought their way through confused Vaxari soldiers toward the main power core. "The whole ship is going crazy," Sora Choi shouted over the noise of failing systems. Captain Jinho Park led them through the corridors, using the stolen Vaxari weapon to clear their path. "Dr. Seo is doing his part. We need to get to the communication." "Hooray!" Dr. Minho Lee stayed close behind them, carrying the portable data storage device they had prepared. "If his plan works, we'll need to record everything he transmits." Deep in the ship's holding area, Dr. Hyun Seo stood with his trunk pressed against the main power coupling. Electrical energy flowed through his mammoth body like water through a river. Every circuit in the ship was now under his control. But Hyun wasn't just shutting down one dreadnought. Through the shared communication network, he was accessing all 3 Vaxari ships at once. 200 years of gathered intelligence flowed through the electrical systems, copying itself into the ship's databanks. "What is happening?" the Vaxari commander demanded as he rushed into the holding area. "How is the experiment controlling our systems?" "It's not possible," the lead scientist replied, staring at his instruments in shock. "The creature should be contained by the suppression field." "The suppression field is what's giving me access to your systems," Hyun said, speaking for the first time since his capture. "You connected me directly to your ship's power grid." The commander raised his weapon, but the energy blast had no effect. Hyun's bioelectric field deflected the attack easily. 200 years, Hyun continued, his voice calm despite the chaos around him. 200 years of studying your technology, memorizing your weaknesses, and waiting for this moment. Throughout the ship, Vaxari crew members struggled to regain control of their systems. But every attempt to override Hyun's influence failed. He had become part of the ship itself, controlling it from within. "You wanted to prove that humans are just animals," Hyun said to the terrified Vaxari around him. "But you made one mistake. You gave an animal the intelligence of a human. Now, you'll learn what that combination can do." The ship's communication array suddenly activated at full power. Instead of the usual Vaxari military channels, it began broadcasting on human frequencies. Every human defense coalition outpost within 50 light years received the same message. "This is Dr. Hyun Seo of the Human Defense Coalition, speaking. From inside a Vaxari dreadnought," the transmission began. "I am uploading 2 centuries of intelligence about Vaxari military operations, ship designs, and strategic weaknesses." Yuna's team had reached the communication center just as the broadcast began. They watched in amazement as massive amounts of data flowed through the ship's systems. "He's not just sending military intelligence," Sora observed, monitoring the data stream. "He's transmitting the complete technical specifications of their entire fleet." "Look at this," Park said, pointing to one of the displays. "Vaxari ships all have the same vulnerability. Their power systems can be overloaded from within." The broadcast continued across human space. On every human world, military commanders, received detailed information about Vaxari weaknesses that no human had ever known before. The Vaxari Empire maintains control through fear and superior technology, Hyun's voice explained. But their technology depends on bioelectric systems that can be controlled by anyone with the right knowledge and abilities. Back on New Eden, the human colonists watched the 3 Vaxari dreadnoughts in orbit with growing amazement. The massive ships were clearly in distress, with their lights flickering and their formation breaking apart. "Something's happening to the alien ships," one colonist reported to the others. "They're losing power." On the first dreadnought, Hyun was nearing the end of his transmission. The effort of controlling 3 massive starships simultaneously was taking its toll on his enhanced physiology. But he had one more message to send. "To all humans receiving this transmission," he said, his voice growing weaker but more determined. "Remember that even when our enemies try to reduce us to animals, we never stop being human. We adapt, we survive, and we never forget who we are or what we're fighting for." The Vaxari commander made one last desperate attempt to stop the transmission. He and his remaining soldiers rushed toward Hyun, firing their weapons continuously. "You cannot stop what has already begun," Hyun said as the energy blast struck him. "This information is already spreading across human space. Your advantage is gone." Yuna's team fought their way to Hyun's location, but they were too late to help him. The massive Mammoth was surrounded by Vaxari soldiers, his body damaged by multiple weapon strikes. "Dr. Seo," Yuna called out. Hyun turned his great head toward her. "Take care of the data," he said softly. "Make sure it reaches the right people." "We will," she promised. "And tell them," Hyun continued, his voice fading, "that a human never stopped fighting, even in the body of a mammoth." With those words, Dr. Hyun Seo released all the electrical energy he'd been storing in his enhanced body. The surge overloaded every system on all 3 dreadnoughts simultaneously. The mighty Vaxari warships went dark, their power cores shut down permanently. The explosion of released energy also opened the dreadnought's communication array to its maximum range. Hyun's final transmission reached not just nearby human colonies, but deep into Vaxari space itself. Every world, every ship, every outpost in the galaxy received the same message. 3 days later, human battle fleets arrived at New Eden to find the Vaxari dreadnoughts floating powerless in orbit. The alien crews had been forced to evacuate to the planet's surface, where they were captured by the human colonists. "It's incredible," Admiral Kim reported to Human Defense Coalition headquarters. "The intelligence Dr. Seo provided has changed everything. We now understand Vaxari technology better than they do." Yuna stood in the memorial garden that the colonists had built for Dr. Hyun Seo. The monument was not a statue of a human, but of a mammoth. The inscription read, "In memory of Dr. Hyun Seo, who proved that humanity exists in the mind and spirit, not just the body." "The war is turning," Park told her as he joined her at the memorial. "Fleets across human space are using Dr. Seo's intelligence to defeat Vaxari forces that seemed invincible just days ago." "He spent 200 years planning this moment," Yuna replied. 200 years as a prisoner in an animal's body, never giving up hope." Minho and Sora approached, carrying data tablets with the latest reports from the front lines. "The Vaxari are retreating from 12 star systems," Sora announced. "Their commanders don't understand how humans suddenly know all their secrets. More importantly," Minho added, "we're finding other cases. Humans who were subjected to the same punishment as Dr. Seo. Their consciousnesses were placed in various animal forms across the galaxy. And they're all fighting back," Park said with satisfaction. "Every one of them has been gathering intelligence and sabotaging Vaxari operations, just like Dr. Seo." Yuna looked up at the stars, knowing that somewhere, out there, the war that had lasted for centuries was finally beginning to end. The Vaxari had thought they were being clever by turning humans into animals. Instead, they had created the most effective spy network in galactic history. "He was right," she said quietly. "Even when they tried to make him into an animal, he never stopped being human." 6 months later, the Vaxari Empire sued for peace. faced with an enemy that understood their technology better than they did, and with human consciousness scattered throughout their territory in forms they had never suspected, they finally accepted that humanity was not the inferior species they had believed. The war was over, won not by superior firepower or advanced technology, but by the most human trait of all, the refusal to give up no matter what form that refusal might take. In the memorial garden on New Eden, visitors from across human space came to pay their respects to Dr. Hyun Seo. Children would ask their parents why the monument showed a mammoth instead of a person. The answer was always the same. Because he proved that being human isn't about what body you have. It's about what you do with the mind and spirit that make you who you really are.